G'day, Steve here, Woodworking Masterclass. Welcome to the workshop. Now this is part 3 of making the plate rack, but instead of making it a normal part 3, I've actually broken it down into 3 different sections because I'm going to be doing mortises and tenons and sharpening chisels. So the first one is how I sharpen chisels. Well, I've got most of the components done here. I still have to do 2 rails for the back, which I'll do at a later stage, but we've got the shelves done and got the sides cut and shaped. Now it's a matter of cutting the mortises and tenons so we can put it all together. Instead of actually cutting them in here, which is going to take a fair amount of time because, as you can tell with the nice shapes I've got, I haven't got flat surfaces to work off. I thought I'd take you through the process of cutting the mortises and tenons. So I'll be doing a couple of different types of tenons and different types of mortises. There'll be a bare-faced tenon and a normal tenon, only I'm going to wedge it. And then with the mortises, I've got a stop mortise and a through mortise. And one that is a through mortise, but it's a little bit different, and I'll show you how to make that as well. But before we can start cutting any mortises or tenons, first of all, let's sharpen some chisels. Because if you haven't got really sharp chisels, you're going to find it very hard to do any of these types of joints. So first up, I'll sharpen the chisel. I get a lot of emails from people asking how to sharpen and what I use and how I sharpen. For me, it's simple. There are so many ways to sharpen. There's so many products you can get on the market nowadays, but this is what I use. It's just a Norton stone. It's got an aluminium oxide on the top and that grey stuff underneath, and I think it's classified as fine. I also have same, only this is a coarser aluminium oxide, which I only use if I've got a bad chip in my chisel and I really want to move a lot of stock. So that one I think's been around for about 25 years, and this has been around for over 30 years. You can still buy them. I think they're about $30. And I use kerosene. You could use a light machine oil or any sort of lubricant. Water would do, but I find an oil-based liquid works a lot better. Now, all I've done with this, I bought the stone. They come in a foam container. Just got a lump of timber, routed it out, slotted that in, same to the top. It fits on there, but a little trick you can do is right here, I've just actually nailed in some brads and then snipped them off with a pair of pliers. And that way I can put it on the bench, give it a little bit of a push. Now that's not going to move. Whereas if it's flat and I'm sharpening, there's every chance the stone's going to move on the bench. 3 little brads, pop it in there, and that's not going to move. Now, it all depends what you think of your bench. For me, bench is there to get marked, and it gets marked. So, ordinary chisel. This is an old Marples. Again, I've had it for about 30 years. I use a hollow grind, and my primary bevel is 25 degrees, and I have a secondary bevel at 30 degrees. When I do the hollow grind, yes, I've got a Tormek. I've also got a ceramic wheel on an ordinary grinder. And it's just a question of getting that hollow grind, and then the secondary bevel is the one that really does all the work. The reason I like a hollow grind as opposed to a flat grind is when I want to brighten my chisel up, all I have to do is resharpen that secondary bevel, the 30-degree one, whereas if the entire thing was flat ground, I'd have to take a lot of material off to get that sharp point again. You can get jigs, as I think I've spoken about earlier in a hand plane video. to get your angles, but after a while you get a feel for it, and it's a question, a little bit of caro. You just, on one of these stones in particular, when you put your tool on there and you rock it, you actually get a very little line come up, and it changes colour as you press down on the stone. It brings the liquid to the surface, so you can tell when you're actually on the cutting edge. This does need a fair bit of work, but for the purpose of the exercise, I'll sharpen it, we'll use it, and it'll still work fine. A bit more caro. Now I tilt it up, so I've got that angle there, and then up just a fraction, and without using my hands like that, 'cause that changes the angle, because every time you move your hands, in effect, exaggerated, this is what you're doing. Whereas I hold it and I rock my body, and by rocking my body, I maintain that same angle with my hands. So here goes. Now, if I bring that up a smidgen, I can just see just a little bit of different coloration on that stone, and then I know I'm right on the edge. And then I do 3. And then you check for the underneath of the chisel, and you'll feel a very fine wire. Pop that on, and again, rocking motion. A couple of times, feel it. You'll feel that that's nice and flat. A lot of people I know, they love to have mirrors on the back of their chisels. That will happen with over time, but quite frankly, once it's mirrored, you rub it on a stone, it's not mirrored anymore. Then I do the same thing, find that same angle, and then I do 2 passes. So it's 1, 2, medium pressure. You can feel a very fine wire under there. Take that off. Then I'll do 1 pass. And then there's a very fine micro wire. Take that off. And then I just do a very soft pass. See how that is. That's how easy it is to keep a nice sharp edge on your chisel. And if you've got one, or you've got an old bit of leather hanging around, touching it up with a strop will make it even sharper. I don't use any compounds on this strop at all. It's just pure leather. You can use an old boot, you can get in fact, go to a boot maker's, you most likely get enough cut of suede or whatever, put it on a board, and then it's just a question of giving it a couple of licks, and you'll find when you're using your chisel, it'll actually start to blunten a bit. Instead of going back to the stone, go back to the strop. I generally get about 6 to 8 strops between sharpening, whereas before I was using the strop, I'd be going back to the stone all the time, because it's just a build-up of resins and glue and gunk and whatever else, and when you're stropping it, you're cleaning all that off and you're revealing the edge again. Now I've got a nice sharp chisel, it's time for me to pull the shed door down on part A of part 3 of the plate rack project. But please, if you like what we do, check us out on woodworkingmasterclass.com.au, and if you'd like to be a supporter, please click on the Patreon button, and there's some fantastic rewards for the supporters that we have. That include a lot of extra videos that don't make it onto YouTube, and some behind the scenes stuff as well. So if you like what we do, again, please log on Woodworking Masterclass, click on the Become a Supporter button or Buy Bob a Bone, and find out what opportunities you've got of seeing more of what we do. So until then, this is Steve saying remember to keep it sharp, but more importantly, keep it safe, and I look forward to having you in the workshop next time when we're covering part B of part 3 of the plate rack project, and I'm covering several ways of laying out and cutting mortises. Bye for now.